became friends with a spiritualist named Pearl Curran, who was a St. Louis woman who channeled the spirit of various women. In 1910, she married Thomas Wright, who was the president of the Moore Jones Brass and Metal Company.
That sounds like a pretty profitable business.
It was a small but opulent affair, with Elsa's dress coming from Charles Worth in Paris. They took a year-long honeymoon. Traveling to Cairo, Bangladesh, Calcutta, Bombay, and Nairobi.
Not all the cities I would pick, but I like the year-long idea.
When she traveled, she took along 28 pieces of Louis Vuitton luggage.
Oh, man.
Right?
It's really amazing.
They moved into a home in Hortense Place, St. Louis, which was one of fancy neighborhoods in the central west end of St. Louis. Sounded like because she was the youngest, she developed this really strong sense of independence. And that did not jive with her husband's attitude of what a wife should be. So they frequently fought. Apparently, during one episode, she hit him with a vase. He was also unfaithful to her from the very start. She caught him in bed with one of the servants and chased him down the street wielding a fireplace poker. Get it, girl! After finding him in bed with yet another woman, she got into her Pierce Arrow automobile and rammed it into his prized Duesenberg car 3 times.
Not the car.
You're like, oh, not the car! They did have one child, oh my God, who was tragically born early and was stillborn. And she blamed her husband for the baby's death. Eventually, they separated in 1918, and she filed for divorce in 1919. None of the details of the divorce were made public. Papers were sealed. The case was so expedited that it was granted within an hour of it being filed.
What? Why?
On the grounds of general indignities.
I don't even know what that means. I think that happens to me every day.
Right. She spent the next year alone, traveling and visiting with her friends and family. But at some point, she reconnected with her ex-husband, and they ended up traveling together, and they reconciled. On March 8, 1920, they were remarried in New York City and returned to St. Louis. A few days later, her husband, Thomas, said that he heard a sharp cracking sound over the noise of running water. She was in the bathroom, apparently. When he walked into the bedroom, he found her on the bed, and there was a revolver lying next to her. She was dead.
She shot herself.
A lot of people seem to believe that he may have murdered her. It was officially ruled a suicide. So apparently her husband didn't call the police. He called his attorney when he found her dead. So a lot of people think that that may have been that.
Because why would you call your lawyer before you call the police?
Right.
And now for something not so scandalous.
Stay tuned for more scandal sheets after the break. And now, back to the show.
Last but not least.
So that was Elsa?
That was Elsa.
That was Elsa, the youngest daughter. So we have the father committing suicide after the death of his son.
Frederick, yep.
And then we have the youngest daughter committing suicide. Or murdered. And then the oldest son committing suicide after he loses the brewery, basically. So that's 4. Were there more?
That's 1, 2, 3. 3.
No, father.
Well, there's deaths,
son,
but not necessarily
Elsa.
Suicides.
Oh, right. Frederick was not a suicide. He just died. But the father committed suicide. Elsa committed suicide. And Billy committed suicide, yes?
Correct.
Okay. There is another one.
Right. So Charles Lemp, who was the third son, and
I don't remember the story.
Committed suicide.
Yes. Is he the one that also shot his dog?
Yes. Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
Keep him out of this.
I know, right?
Keep your dog
out of this. Keep your cats out of this.
Well, at least it was a quick...
That's true. So yeah, the third son also killed himself in the mansion. Basically,
was that a mental health? Like, what was the impetus for that? Do we know? Because the other ones we knew why, kind of, right?
Yeah, they don't really talk about.
And he shot himself in the chest? Somebody left dinner and just went to their room and killed. I really lost track because it was just.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot to take in and just really sad. So I'm sure that those who believe in people beyond the grave, I'm sure that they find a way and a reason to believe that they've seen things. because the house has been full of sadness.
Well, okay, so apparently Charles Lemp actually went into banking, and as he got older, he became more and more reclusive. So it sounds to me like maybe dementia.
Ah, yes. I do remember this.
So he ended up moving into the Lemp mansion.
Yes.
And he remodeled it because it actually had been broken up.
This is in the 20s?
This was in the 40s, I believe.
Oh, it was much later. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was in the 40s. So Charles had moved back into the residence and turned it back into a single family house because it had been turned into a boarding house, I think. And he lived there with 2 servants. Apparently he was a germaphobe who wore gloves at all times to keep bacteria away.
Oh, that's funny.
He was a very, very difficult man, and his one remaining brother, Edwin, urged him to move out of the mansion because of the past traumas that had occurred there, but he refused.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to live there.
He shot himself with a .38 revolver on May 9th, 1949. I wonder if it's the same .38 revolver. They all shoot themselves with .38 revolvers.
Oh.
They like passing it down. He actually left a suicide note. First one to do it.
The only one. Yes, yeah. I remember reading about that.
And he made funeral arrangements for himself beforehand. He did not want to be interred in the family mausoleum, but wanted to be taken straight to the Missouri crematory and have his ashes placed in a wicker box and be buried on his farm. Before that, he did not want to be bathed, changed, or spruced up in any manner. He wanted no service and no death announcement published.
What happened to all their stuff? Is it in an archive, or do they have family papers?
I don't know about that, but
okay.
Edwin, he had a lot of the stuff, and he donated some of it to the Missouri Historical Society. So they have a lot of the portraits of the family.
Yeah.
And I think they said that.
Yeah, the one thing, and we post or talk about people's appearances, but I do not know what any of these people look like.
They have tons of pictures online.
Okay.
Yeah, there's tons of photographs.
We should maybe offer that on the Insta.
Yeah, I can do
something.
Multiple.
I would be very interested to see about this lavender lady. Really anyone, because I'm sure that the facial hair game is probably on point, but especially the lavender lady.
Apparently she was considered a great beauty. I find her kind of...
Was she actually a handsome woman?
Strange looking.
Mm-hmm.
She has very strange lips. But however, that's a shit human, and he looks like a shit human.
He's kind of
It looks like he has devil horns growing out of his head.
His eyes are kind of close together.
Because they're dead.
Literally the only thing is that the monkey ate the canary and he killed some neighborhood cats.
And he possibly
we don't know the whole situation. Yeah. I don't condone that behavior, but I feel like you hate him more than one would have to hate an individual because of that.
Look at Frederick. He looks like Edgar, my cat. Speaking of cats.
Yep, he does. All he needs is whiskers.
Yes.
And ears.
Yeah, instead of his mustache.
He looks surprised.
He does.
Okay, so we'll have to share some of that because it's quite entertaining. Do we have at the end to wrap this all up?
So starting in 1970, the Lemp Mansion was considered one of the most haunted places in America. So I
want to know who goes in and is like, all right, this place is haunted. I mean, right? Because you don't have the shows, you don't have the paranormal. Right. So is there somebody coming in? Like, is it changing hands? Like, is this the house selling and somebody is saying, this place is cray-cray. We need to have it cleaned of its bad juju.
It is bad juju.
But somebody has to start that ball rolling, right? Because there have clearly been other homes, buildings, whatever, that have had tragic things, like maybe the room that we're sitting in right now. We don't know, but I guess because of the level of notoriety of this family is how you establish, well, we know their story, we know there were lots of murders, but since no one high enough up in the spectrum of, history occupied, owned, whatever, this building, we don't have that. So it's all mind games, right? You only believe that a place is haunted because you know it is, right? If we were to walk into that place and not know the backstory, if I'd never heard of the Lemps, if I just wanted to stay at this B&B not knowing that it's haunted, my mind would not be in a place where it could maybe me think that I see or feel or hear
something weird
happening. Yeah. I don't think that people haven't experienced weird things, but I think that they were already predisposed. Like, you know that Eastern State Penitentiary, you know that the old jail here, you know that these certain places have had traumatic events, historical events happen. And if you don't know that, I just don't think that your mind would go to a place where you are able to experience a lot of that.
So yeah, and this is a lot of what's discussed in this book, Ghostland by Colin Dickey, that I just mentioned on the last podcast.
I really want to read that.
He does tour and stay in the Lemp Mansion.
Yeah. Oh, does he?
Yeah. Actually, I will read this excerpt. This is from Time Magazine.
Oh, yeah.
From October of 2016.
Is it about the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is what it says. A similar Freudian displacement takes place at the Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, home to German-American family whose beer brand Falstaff was a rival to Pabst and Anheuser-Busch. After a series of financial and personal setbacks in the early 20th century, several members of the family committed suicide, leading onlookers to believe that the house must have been haunted by spirits that drove them to their death.
Oh, so they thought... Oh, so people are seeing this thinking that it's the house causing the tragedy.
Possibly.
And of course, we're thinking, well, the house is haunted because
of all these tragedies.
They have Yeah. That's really interesting.
Quote, from a non-paranormal perspective, Dickey says, here is a family that may have very well been suffering from undiagnosed depression or other medical ailments that went untreated. It manifested itself in this way that people seize upon it for its supernatural aspect as a way of sidestepping these concerns about depression and mental health.
Absolutely.
Though Dickey also writes about hotels, abandoned asylums, and prisons that are rumored to have spirits hanging about, houses are a focus for a reason. The home represents safety. It symbolizes achieving the American dream. It symbolizes wealth and affluence, Dickey says. And so the haunted house is a kind of inversion of all that. It's the place that should be safe and welcoming and warm.
But isn't.
But it becomes scary and terrifying.
Yeah.
It becomes uncanny in the literal German sense of the word, which is unheimlich, or unhomely, not home-like. Ghostland approaches phantoms as metaphors for what ails our society, but of course many people actually believe that ghosts are real. Polling hovers around 1/3 of Americans who say they believe.
Wow.
But Dickey pleads the fifth on his own belief. What I realized very early on, he says, is that if someone believes in ghosts and you try to disprove that to them, it's not going to work. So yeah, it's once again, it's a great book, Ghostland: An American History and Haunted Places by Colin Dickey.
Okay, so now that's like moved up on my list.
Yeah, and I mean, it inspired this because he specifically mentions like the divorce,
the Lemp,
and all that stuff in the Lemp Mansion, and I was like, oh wow, I always knew about it because I'm of a paranormal. I don't know.
Junkie?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I do like watch the shows because they're amusing. I like listening to
They are amusing.
So, all right, we got to close this sucker down.
We do.
I'm hungry. I haven't had dinner yet.
I haven't either.
And we have to go feed Bruno and take Adrian home.
Oh, we have to feed Bruno.
Yes. Bruno is my feral cat that I take care of.
Bruno.
Yeah, so...
He's funny.
He is a funny cat.
He's a good boy. Can you touch him?
No. Oh, no.
That's a bummer. Because all my little girls that I would feed, they would run up to me and make noise and rub against my legs. And
that's enough for me that he knows my car and he comes.
Yeah, he knows that you're there to help him.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think when he hisses at me, it's when people have been maybe messing with him or something, or chasing him or something, and he gets weirded out. Because he just kind of goes through phases. So it's don't mess with your local ferals unless you just intend on like helping them.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'm going to come after you and call you a shit human.
I love that the most swears in any episode has come from Caroline's mouth and not mine, because sometimes I curse like a sailor, but not on the podcast.
Would it be better if I had...
There's got to be a good French slang for that. Or Italian, maybe. Italian seems like it would have a really good, very emphatic swear, like horrible human word.
Yeah.
Idiota. But that's not strong enough, but something like that. Anyway.
So
we liked I enjoyed learning about the Lemps, and I for sure want to go to St. Louis, but it's totally
not in the winter.
Totally out of the way. Like, what do you do if you don't know anybody there? I mean, I'm not sure, but that hotel you stayed in looked